It's Jeff Mucci with RCR Wireless News. We're here at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View at the TC3 annual event. We're meeting with founder and partner with EnterpriseWeb, Dave Duggal. Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Great, Jeff, fantastic. Thank you for setting aside the time for me.
Well, you're up for the most disruptive award tonight.
Yes.
What makes you so disruptive?
Yeah, I think we're going to shake some things up
tonight.
I hope.
Yep.
Yeah, with the San Andreas Award. So I just love that name. So I really want to win it just for that name, I think, actually. So what have we done? I mean, EnterpriseWeb is an idea about automating interoperability itself. So it's 2015, but we still automate in a 20th century kind of way, right? We wire our applications together. We wire our processes together, right? And the problem with that is, given the rate of change with cloud, network services, IoT, the number of partners you need to connect, the rate of change of those partner technologies, the rate of change in the protocols, like Etsy is changing and evolving, TMF, ONF, they're all changing their protocols. How do you manage that complexity? How do you build stable, resilient, dynamic applications and processes over the top that aren't breaking every time something at a lower level breaks? So EnterpriseWeb is providing an application fabric that essentially abstracts all the lower level technical complexity. It represents all of my partner services, all of my NFVI resources as objects, right? And even it represents even protocols as objects of software objects that are represents them all in one consistent horizontal layer. And if I'm the business, I can now just point at those software objects in metadata, point and click using links or metadata to compose business solutions really quickly without worrying about how they connect and how they deliver. I just focus on what's the value, what's the business function, what's the SLA. And let's be honest, that's all the business has ever cared about. The business never liked talking about the technical details. That was a byproduct of the way we did the work. But it's looking more and more backward. I think 10 years from now, people almost laugh at the way you manually integrated that, right?
I remember writing scripts to hardware to make hardware doing things before there were XML interfaces, so that was really brittle.
Yeah.
And then you moved into this kind of messaging bus, the TIPCO of the world and that sort of thing,
yep,
where they would build the connectors, and
yes,
hypothetically you would plug in and they would worry about updating. Well, the fact of the matter is they had a product roadmap, and you get prioritized which vendor was going to get updated, and so you're still subjected to the same brittleness.
Exactly.
You mentioned metadata. How does that solve the problem? And how do I not have to go back and every time someone updates a software version, that connector's got to get rebuilt or that script's got to rebuild?
Yeah, so that's
the
fantastic.
metadata. I mean, that's how does that work?
It's hard, right? Because you're correct. This has been thought about and discussed and promised many times before, right? Service orientation was supposed to deliver it, right? And before that, these are sort of the early ideas of computer science itself. Right? It's the promise of computer science is that all this stuff just interacts with itself. These are just objects interacting. And service orientation tried and sort of fell short. These other vendors tried and fell short because ultimately they were static somewhere. And the problem is you can't be half agile, right? If your arms are free but your legs are in cement, you're not agile, right? And so what happens is we build static siloed solutions and go, great. And then somebody comes in and says, well, now I need to integrate that with my other static siloed solution. Now I've got two static siloed solutions bridged by a static siloed solution, right, across them. So you're essentially building houses of cards. So what we do so the problem has been not raising the abstractions high enough, right? So you started with scripts. It's sort of funny because in NFV, that's where we are, right? It's like these guys fall out of the networking cabinet, and all of a sudden it's like they discover scripts for the first time. Like it's like one of the old primitive ideas of computer science. It's not even good computer science, right? It's really low level details, and we're writing scripts over Chef with Chef Puppet Python, over OpenStack and stuff like that are one-off throwaway scripts, not data driven, right? And they're low down, right? They're way down below the business service. Really, what we needed to do is raise that DevOps abstraction right up to the level right in between the OSS BSS, which should describe customers and products, right? And everything else, which is how it gets implemented. The business should only ever care about what it wants and let the technology be flexible, sort of deal with the vagaries of change and evolution and optimization. So, of course, whether we can completely express this in this interview, I'm not sure, but essentially by representing everything in metadata, essentially we're actually representing everything as an object in a consistent layer, it makes it look, or it presents it to the business as if everything's the same. Now, you and I know that not everything's the same. It's distributed, it's heterogeneous, but it's actually an abstraction that adds value if I could look at everything as if it's the same, right? So I can look at all these partner VNFs. I don't want to look at them like they're all unique snowflakes. I want to look at them like, hey, I can pick any VNF I want. I can find them all from the same place. They're all indexed the same way. I can search them the same way. And if I can do that using the metadata to find them and look at them and understand them, I can then also compose them. I could say, you know what, I want this VNF, this VNF, this VNF in a chain. I will, under these policies, under this logic. I don't want to integrate it. I don't have to worry about the integration. I don't even really care where it runs or how it runs, because do you care if you're using a cloud service? Do you care if it's running or where it's running or how? You just want your SLA. So what we're using, that metadata is driving the search and navigation, it's driving the composition. It's also driving consistent policy control, and that's a really big deal, because doing a one-off siloed implementation of anything is not a proof of anything other than that one-off siloed solution, right? So what we really want to do is have this generalized metadata layer where I can build lots of solutions off of it, right? And they're all drawing from the same objects, right? I get this power of declarative composability, reuse, right? IT productivity, right? The business gets ease of service development. And actually, IT also benefits from that separation of concerns too, because now they can be updating adding new objects into the system, new connections, new functions, without worrying about the higher level business logic. We've separated the concerns. The business focuses on its logic and policies, and IT focuses about what can I do to service the layer above me. So the trick is, I think, as you really point out, metadata is, okay, well, that's a lot of metadata. How do you manage that? How do you abstract that? And that's the basis of our IP, right? People have tried these things before. For a variety of reasons, they haven't worked. They haven't been able to abstract their own environment. They haven't been able to make it performant enough. They haven't been able to make it scalable enough. Or it was so generalized, the abstraction was so broad that it wasn't easy to comprehend. And so what EnterpriseWeb has really done well, the strength of our IP is that it's fast, it scales, it's lightweight, deploys, has a very small footprint, it's horizontally scalable, and we have a meta model, right, that makes this understandable, right? So even though it's complex what it's doing, the business shouldn't have to worry about that complexity. All it cares about is, I connect these things and it runs. They don't have to worry about it being parallel or coding for that.
But I got to ask you, this sounds dreamy.
Yeah.
It's a 10. Okay. Do you have customers today using it?
Yes, we do. So our company was formed in 2009. Yeah. We're not VC funded, right? So we did this all on our own. We're profitable on our own. We have customers and partners on 4 continents already. We've been in production for 3.5 years, live on customer sites, not a single crash. I mean, that's a bold claim. I don't think any other IT vendor would ever make that publicly. And so we work in a variety of domains, though. So we work in life sciences. We've built a fabric over SAP, helping people doing data management and data governance over SAP, because it's sort of another instance of the same problem. How do I work across a stack where the components are changing and I need a little bit more flexibility and loose coupling? In life sciences, similar problems. You have really complex event-driven processes. If somebody's brought into an operating theater, they come in under one diagnosis, but all of a sudden they start hemorrhaging. I'm going to now actually manage both problems on the table. I have to make sure I don't introduce a drug that might have what's called a counterindication. So I have to manage the constraints between these things.
That's policy. It gets back into policy. Yep.
But what's really interesting is most people wouldn't think of those things as the same problem, right? They wouldn't look at telecom, industrial Internet of Things, life sciences, and SAP fabric integration. And we'd say, no, it's actually really naturally the same thing, because you know what? It's all distributed computing, right? We distribute things, which means we fragment. Now we need a way to reintegrate it. Do I want to manually reintegrate it? Absolutely not. It's not scalable. So what I need to do is I got to get the man out of the middle. We replace that human integration that is very expensive, very time-consuming, and disruptive with a software agent that literally says, oh, you're Jeff Mucci. I know Jeff. Jeff works here. He has this role. I know where he is in time and space. I know what he's requesting. I can use your in-band metadata to sort of what's called bootstrap the traversal of other objects inside the system. And then I can contextualize response for you and deliver at millisecond speed. And I would have also not only done your functional concern, I do your security identity, I'll do your business compliance, your IT governance, and system controls, all at millisecond speed per interaction. So we literally, the system actually lives in that moment. That agent is this ephemeral agent. It's just going out and saying it's your concierge for that moment. It's going out there and saying, hey, Jeff, I'm not going to just deliver a static interface to you. I'm going to optimize that interface based on your current conditions and also the state of the entire system. Because it's not just all about you, there's other policies are involved.
So do you have to have a northbound, southbound SDK? I mean, is that, that terminology, just by saying northbound, southbound SDK sounds a lot like an API type layer, but what are the skill sets required at the IT department to open up the ether and all this stuff to come out, metadata to come out, and then what kind of skill set is required on the northbound side to connect in and capture the metadata that's being released out of an SAP?
So great questions. I think you've been around the block a couple of times, I suspect. So you're identifying some of the challenges. So of course, that comprehensibility, you have to make this easy. Nobody cares if you got the smartest solution in the world if they can't use it. Right? It's like, so you're a rocket scientist, great. That's really interesting, but how do I apply it in the real world, right? So you got to make it easy. So first of all, we do expose a northbound API using REST, TMFs, REST Open Digital APIs. You
got some nice awards from TF Forum, right?
Yeah, we got TM Forum actually won. I think we're the only company in the world that's ever, in history, that's ever won 2 TM Forum TMF Live awards in a row. 2 consecutive years in a row. So we use open standards wherever they're available. We supplement and extend them, and we relate them to make an end-to-end solution. So the REST API, for the last TMF Live 2015 this June, where we connected Comverse, acting as a BSS, and then Digit, D-I-G-I-T, acting as an OSS, right? Using the TMF APIs. We did that in like a day.
Okay.
All right, so that part was easy. That answers half your question.
Yep.
Not only did we connect them in a day, we made that API much more dynamic than they're used to working with, right? Because if we're exposing things to the northbound layer, it's not enough to provide a static interface. My VNFs are changing. They're extending their functionality. They're getting updated, upgraded, and replaced. I need to be able to communicate that in a consistent fashion to the layer above me so it can react to me in a consistent fashion too. And then I can automate the whole loop. We did that. Then at our layer, I'll give you a real world example. We have one of the world's largest consulting firms, I can't name them quite yet, it's building a global practice. We are working with teams in China, India, and the United States, here in Silicon Valley. 5 hours of remote training, 5, right? They went out for their customer, which happens to be one of the world's largest web companies here in this region, which I cannot name. They built in 30 days, they built a solution for them and knocked that company out of its chair. Right? Okay. They couldn't believe it, that could be done. So we've done something significant. The differentiator is really down in details, and we do describe it to people. We do, with our partners, because we go to market with partners, we give them full unfettered access to sign an NDA, sign an evaluation agreement, here's the code, it deploys in 20 minutes, whatever, kick it as hard as you want, right? They're not breaking it, right? And we're earning trust, we're earning it, right? And so while this sounds pie in the sky, nobody lets us off the hook that easily, right? We're earning these relationships. We're earning this our space in the industry. So we make the SDK, as you said, on our side. It's all declarative. It's through a user interface, but it's also a full round trip to the underlying objects.
Right.
So if you're technical, you go work at the level of the objects. But it'll be represented automatically in real time at the level of the user interface. You change the user interface, you've just changed the object. Okay. So that's called a full round trip. So again, we took a lot of time, and that's why a lot of people don't know about us, because we've been sort of an insider story, right? We've been working behind the scenes, while working on something material, and then proving it in a variety of markets, knowing that those validations will mean more to our growth than anything that we could ever say about ourselves.
Where are you at you talk about you being a bootstrap company, but you're profitable. How do you scale, and how are you going to finance that scale?
Yeah. So we have all the capital we need to do all the work we do currently, right? We actually are supporting customers and partners around the world. And through those good deeds, we're growing, right? Our partners are now accretive, what we call accretive to revenue, right? They're selling deals which drive revenue for us. And so that's our go-to-market, because I want to be an IP or intellectual property-based company, right? We want to scale through our partners. Running a services business is a very different business than being a technology provider. We provide an enabling technology. We want to work with great partners that are committed to innovation and deliver transformation to marketplaces. We're finding those people. I think we're almost in the right place at the right time, where people have matured in their understanding of technology.
Yep.
They know what service orientation can and can't do.
So they bear the cost of the working capital, and you can just reinvest in the R&D side of things.
Yeah, and really what they're doing is doing very rapid solution delivery, because they're not taking a lot of time to do it either. They're using the power of our system to rapidly build and deliver solutions to market that are highly differentiated. And that's pretty important these days to services company, because services have become a commodity business. How do you go to market when there are other parts in the world where you have companies with hundreds of thousands of people that are selling those services at very low cost? So it becomes a numbers game, a number of bodies. But actually, I would argue that the number of bodies thrown at a problem doesn't make the problem better. Actually, fewer people focused and dedicated, collaborating really closely, will solve a problem much better any day than a band of people that are thrown together who code something together tactically but never deliver on strategy.
So here's the tough question. What's your financial business model? If you're focused on the licensing piece, then you've got a integrator of sorts, or a consulting company that's going to come in with bodies. They're going to do the work. How do you make money? I mean, where's the revenue stream come from?
Yeah, so it's it's actually, there's a sort of interesting corollary to that is like, there's a lot of different ways you can implement a system that's only 15 megabytes and does that kind of distributed orchestration, right? Well, we have an optical switch manufacturer that's putting us into their appliances. It's embedded in appliance. We can run inside devices. We can run inside my smartphone, right? We can run in the cloud. We create a cloud wherever we go, effectively, right? We create this sort of networked architecture. We could run on-premise. We can run on a laptop. So it creates a lot of different ways to distribute us. For our partners, we've created a matrixed sort of master contract that allows them to contract with us once, but be flexible on their, because
so they could build solutions on your product.
Yes.
And they've created a product going to market versus just a body shop going to market.
Exactly, and they can flexibly use us in different ways with advanced understanding of how that would impact them financially and their customers financially. Got it. And because we don't want to stop them. So I mean, so back to your first question is, I don't want to be greedy. Let them make all the money on services, right? My end game is not to make money on one customer. It's for us to become ubiquitous infrastructure, right? And just be at a fair price that everybody appreciates, with a strong value proposition. Let our partners make all their money on their services, right? We don't want to be greedy. I think what we want to do is we want to be big, right? And I think that attitude, a sort of value-driven attitude, has served us really well to date. The fact that we're not flashy, we don't spend any money on marketing. We don't even have a marketing team. We don't have a PR team. We don't have a sales team. We've done everything by word of mouth.
That's amazing.
And it's a very different way to run a business. It could be gut-wrenching at times. Yep. It requires a lot of discipline, but I think the results are proving themselves out. It's been a ride, but I feel here at this event at TC3 and all the other Etsy events we go to, Team Forum events that we go to, Open Daylight, et cetera, ONF events that we go to, you can start feeling these ideas are getting more and more traction, right? People are starting to realize that, no, we just don't have it quite right. We need a higher level abstraction. We want business composability. We want we need a leap. We can't do transformation in baby steps, right? You can't cross a chasm in 2 steps, right? You fall down the chasm, right? You want to cross that chasm, you take a leap. And some people leap and fall, and some people leap and cross. But that's the challenge, because standing still is not the option. Right. Right? And that's, I think, so, making no decision is still a decision, right?
Okay. You mentioned some of the open standards groups. Are you all based on open source? And if so, are you contributing that code back into the community?
So we are our own thing. We built ourselves from the bare metal up, right? So we use, in our technology, we use XML, XSLT, JavaScript, Java. So we're using open source technologies. We run on any NoSQL DB, mostly Cassandra. We can run on any SQL DB too, which is really interesting. Yep. Oracle, Microsoft, NoSQL, Postgres, and we work with the groups like Etsy. We were the first POC. We were Etsy NFV POC #1. And we have been contributing, and so I think we've been actually contributing a working model. So in other words, we've been in a way a reference architecture of a sort, informally. Right. But the other thing we have done is directly contributed to the TMF. We just did a contribution. We contributed a meta model for an event-driven dynamic system. We also contributed, most recently, our position on dynamic APIs and how to get there, how to share essentially metadata, links, and constraints in a consistent fashion so that parties that on either side of a contract can understand the change semantics and evolve together for non-disruptive API evolution. It's a pretty big deal. So we are both, I think, informing the industry, learning from the industry, and contributing back. We want to be a real player, but we've also added real value, and we want people to recognize the value we've worked really hard to get to this place, and so we'd like that to be recognized. I think that's fair, and I think, honestly, when we talk to people in the industry, whether it's carriers directly or our partners, they're like, yeah, people, open source isn't free, right? Open source has its own costs. We've chosen to be commercial at this time. It seems to be a good way for us to identify innovators that are willing to pay for value today.
Right.
I don't close any doors for what we might do in the future, but we'll address, we'll jump off that bridge when we get to it.
Got it. Dave, thanks for your time.
Hey, Jeff, this was great. Thank you.